Welcome to Liberty Coins Value, the channel where we uncover the most astonishing stories behind the tiniest treasures in American history, and today we're diving deep into a legend of numismatics that has collectors, historians, and treasure hunters buzzing with excitement, the 1954 sweet penny. A coin so rare and mysterious that one particular specimen is said to be worth a jaw-dropping $30 million due to its extraordinary errors, unique history, and the fascinating possibilities that surround its creation. Imagine holding a simple 1-cent coin, a piece of copper you could find rattling in your change jar, only to discover it could be worth more than a luxury mansion, more than a fleet of sports cars, or even an entire island. This is the incredible reality behind the 1954 sweet penny, a coin that represents not only a mistake of monumental significance but also a piece of American heritage frozen in time. The 1954 sweet penny was struck at the San Francisco Mint, the S mint mark beneath the date being the telltale sign, and it came during a transitional period when the U.S. Mint was perfecting production methods after the chaos of wartime metal shortages and machinery updates. While billions of pennies were produced in the early 1950s, very few from the 1954's mintage stand out, except for a handful of coins that exhibit dramatic minting errors that have puzzled experts for decades. These aren't minor imperfections like a tiny die crack or a small discoloration. We're talking about major blunders, off-center strikes, double die obverse, repunched mint marks, and planchet composition anomalies that make each of these error coins an unintentional masterpiece. One of the most striking features that elevates the 1954 sweet penny into millionaire status is the double die obverse error, where the inscriptions "Liberty" and "In God We Trust," as well as Lincoln's profile, appear slightly doubled, giving the coin a shadowed effect under magnification. Such doubling occurs when the die strikes the blank planchet more than once but at a slightly different angle, leaving behind this ghostly twin image that collectors obsess over. But the true mystery deepens when examining reports of a 1954 penny struck on a silver or steel planchet rather than the standard 95% copper and 5% tin and zinc composition used in wheat cents of that era. Some numismatists believe a few leftover steel planchets from the 1943 wartime cents may have accidentally slipped into the hopper during production, creating a rare hybrid coin that should not exist. Others suggest that experimental blanks or transitional errors caused the use of a different metallic alloy, giving the coin a silvery appearance and an unusual weight. Coins like these are not only historically valuable but physically rare, often unique or one of a handful known to exist, instantly driving their value into the millions. Add to that a repunched mint mark error, where the S under the date was punched more than once by hand, resulting in a visible shadow or doubling of the mint mark, and you have another layer of desirability. Collectors prize these hand-punched details because they highlight a bygone era of minting before precision machinery and laser-guided engraving eliminated human touch from the process. Each error tells a story of the mint worker's hand, the conditions of the minting floor, and the technological imperfections of mid-20th century coin production. Some 1954 sweet pennies even exhibit broad strikes, where the coin expands beyond its normal diameter due to being struck without the retaining collar that holds the blank in place, giving the edges a stretched, almost melted look. There are also misaligned die errors, where one die is slightly off-center, causing part of the design to drift toward the rim, and these off-center errors can range from subtle to extreme, the most dramatic examples cutting off Lincoln's portrait or portions of the text entirely, making them immensely desirable to collectors who seek unique visual appeal. Then there are die cracks, die breaks, and cuds, small raised lines or blobs of metal formed when the die itself begins to deteriorate or break apart under pressure, leaving behind scars and raised features that act as fingerprints of the coin's production journey. Every imperfection becomes a badge of rarity. Now, imagine a coin combining several of these errors, a double die obverse, struck on the wrong planchet, with a repunched S mint mark and off-center alignment. That combination would not just be rare, it would be nearly impossible, and that's exactly why one known specimen of the 1954 sweet penny has been appraised and rumored to hold a value of around $30 million. Its blend of errors defies the odds, and its flawless preservation in mint state condition pushes it into the realm of legend. Many collectors have never seen this coin in person, and its mysterious ownership only adds to its allure. It's said to have been discovered in a roll of uncirculated cents in the early 1960s by a collector who initially overlooked its anomalies until years later when the doubling, off-metal strike, and misalignment were recognized for what they were, an impossible accident. But the story of the 1954 wheat penny's value isn't just about minting errors, it's about the context in which it was born. The year 1954 marked the end of an era for wheat pennies, as the U.S. Mint prepared to shift toward the Lincoln Memorial reverse design introduced in 1959. The San Francisco Mint itself would soon cease cent production for decades, making late-S mint wheat cents inherently scarcer. In addition, post-war coinage experienced several metallurgical and die-making experiments, as the mint refined its processes after the wartime steel cent debacle of 1943. There were leftover materials, outdated dies, and transitional errors that crept into production batches, making certain years like 1954 fertile ground for oddities. Combine that with the human element of die engraving and manual adjustments, and you get coins that escaped quality control undetected but later became legendary. The 1954 wheat penny also captivates because of its role in the collector's psyche. It represents the thrill of discovery. To find a coin that looks ordinary but hides unimaginable value beneath its worn surface is the dream of every numismatist. Over the years, countless treasure hunters have combed through jars, rolls, and estate collections searching for such treasures. And what's remarkable is that even circulated examples of 1954 pennies with strong doubling or partial off-center errors can fetch hundreds or thousands of dollars, depending on the severity and visibility of the mistake. Mint state versions with clear doubling on Liberty or In God We Trust can skyrocket to tens of thousands, while proof-like strikes with planchet anomalies are worth even more. But the $30 million figure isn't just about technical rarity, it's about legend, provenance, and narrative. Like the 1943 copper penny and the 1944 steel cent, which broke auction records because of their unique backstories, the 1954 wheat penny occupies a mythic space in coin collecting where history meets mystery. Some experts speculate that the $30 million specimen might have been struck during a maintenance cycle when dies from different batches were accidentally mixed, perhaps a leftover 1953 die paired with a fresh 1954 one, or even a test strike on a leftover steel planchet that was never meant to be released. Others believe it might have been an intentional mint test piece or pattern coin that escaped into circulation by mistake, similar to the experimental coins occasionally discovered decades later. Such theories only deepen the intrigue, and with no identical coin ever surfacing, its uniqueness becomes unchallenged. Its rarity is absolute. Beyond errors, the coin's historical design itself adds charm. Victor D. Brenner's iconic portrait of Abraham Lincoln, first introduced in 1909, symbolizes freedom, unity, and endurance. The wheat stalks on the reverse, representing prosperity and growth, remind us of America's agricultural roots. To hold a wheat penny is to hold a century of national pride and craftsmanship, and when one such coin carries unintentional errors, it becomes a symbol of both human imperfection and artistic achievement. Over time, the 1954 wheat penny has been featured in magazines, collector conventions, and numismatic exhibitions, sparking debates about authenticity, mint processes, and the role of chance in coin production. Every expert who examines the rare piece describes it as an anomaly beyond explanation, a coin that bridges two eras of minting, crafted in error but immortalized by fortune. Some even theorize that its die alignment reveals subtle differences between the master hubs of the early 1950s, offering clues about mint practices long forgotten. Others note the presence of minute variations in the metal's surface that suggest a hybrid composition, further blurring the line between accident and experiment. Collectors love stories like this because they remind us that the mint, for all its precision, was still run by humans working with imperfect machines. In those moments of imperfection, history was born. As the legend of the 1954 wheat penny spread, its mystique fueled public imagination. Newspapers occasionally ran stories about people finding valuable pennies, feeding a nationwide fascination with pocket change. Shows like Antiques Roadshow and coin-collecting YouTube channels have reignited interest, showing that even coins once dismissed as common could turn out to be priceless. That's the enduring magic of numismatics, hidden value waiting in plain sight. Imagine inheriting an old coffee can filled with wheat pennies, unaware that one coin inside could fund generations. Next. Today we're uncovering the incredible story behind the 1946 wheat penny that's been making waves among collectors and historians alike, rumored to be worth a jaw-dropping $19 million due to a series of minting errors, production mistakes, and mysterious historical circumstances that make it one of the most talked-about coins in American numismatic history. A true symbol of how something as small as a penny can carry an enormous legacy of craftsmanship, error, and intrigue, turning an ordinary piece of copper into an extraordinary fortune. The 1946 wheat penny came at a critical time in American history, right after World War II, when the country was transitioning from wartime production back to normal consumer goods, and the U.S. Mint was adjusting to new materials, machinery, and post-war conditions. During this period, there were countless challenges at the minting facilities across Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco, and those challenges sometimes led to unusual and unexpected coin varieties that collectors today hunt for passionately. The 1946 wheat penny, which continued the classic Lincoln wheat reverse design that had been in place since 1909, was minted primarily from bronze, consisting of about 95% copper and small portions of tin and zinc, but in some rare cases, due to leftover planchets and contamination in the minting process, some of these pennies were struck on steel planchets left over from the 1943 wartime cents, or on experimental compositions not intended for circulation, and those are the types of mistakes that transformed an ordinary penny into a multimillion-dollar treasure. The most valuable 1946 pennies are those that were never meant to exist in the first place, those that carry off-metal errors, double dyes, repunched mint marks, and even lamination flaws that tell a story of imperfection and history. Imagine holding a 1946 penny that looks slightly off in color, perhaps with a silvery gray tone instead of the usual reddish copper. Such a piece could have been accidentally struck on a leftover steel planchet from 1943, a minting mistake that is almost impossible to replicate and incredibly rare to find. If authenticated, such a coin could easily be valued in the millions, as collectors crave these anomalies that reflect a one-in-a-billion minting moment. Another significant error seen in 1946 wheat pennies involves double dyes, especially on the obverse side where Abraham Lincoln's portrait is featured. Some coins show clear doubling in the inscriptions, "In God We Trust, Liberty," or the date, 1946, caused when the die shifted slightly during the hubbing process, resulting in two overlapping impressions. These double die coins are not just interesting, they represent rare production anomalies that dramatically increase value depending on their visibility and condition. A strong double die example with clean, sharp doubling could easily fetch hundreds of thousands, and if combined with another error type or exceptional condition, could be part of that handful of specimens that reach multimillion-dollar valuations. Then there are the repunched mint marks, particularly on 1946 D or 1946 S pennies, where the small D or S mint mark was punched more than once into the die, creating an overlapping or shadowed appearance. During this era, mint marks were manually punched, so variations were inevitable, but some stand out with such clarity that they become prized treasures. These repunched mint mark varieties can command staggering premiums, especially when combined with an overall strong strike and high-grade surfaces. But perhaps one of the most intriguing features that can make a 1946 penny extraordinarily valuable is when it shows evidence of die cracks, die breaks, or lamination errors, imperfections in the metal that occurred during striking or planchet preparation. A lamination error, for instance, could cause a piece of the coin's surface to peel slightly, revealing the metal layers beneath, creating a one-of-a-kind texture. When combined with other errors, these small imperfections tell a unique story of how the mint was struggling to perfect its process during a time of change. In 1946, the mint was transitioning away from wartime materials and restoring the standard bronze composition, but sometimes, leftover steel planchets or improper metal mixtures got through quality control. These transitional errors are among the rarest and most desirable coins because they represent an intersection of two minting eras, wartime and post-war. A confirmed 1946 penny struck on a steel planchet or a zinc-coated piece would instantly rank among the rarest U.S. coins known, potentially commanding millions at auction. There have even been reports of 1946 pennies with partial reading on the edge, suggesting that some were struck using equipment meant for dimes or other denominations, an incredibly rare mishap that adds even more mystery to these pieces. Collectors are captivated by the story of how these errors occur, imagining the chaos and intensity inside the mint as thousands of coins were produced every minute, yet one or two unique mistakes slipped through unnoticed, only to be discovered decades later by an eagle-eyed collector. Condition, of course, plays a massive role in determining a coin's value. A flawless, uncirculated 1946 penny with mint luster intact and a prominent error can bring astronomical prices, especially when certified by top grading companies like PCGS or NGC. Such coins might appear ordinary to the untrained eye, but under magnification, small anomalies tell the story: an extra mint mark, a die crack through Lincoln's bust, a doubled inscription, or a faint trace of a steel undertone beneath the copper surface. Some experts believe that the most expensive 1946 penny ever sold for millions was a unique transitional error combining several mistakes: a steel planchet, a double die obverse, and a lamination peel on the reverse, creating a coin so distinct that it could never be replicated. When such a coin appears, its rarity ignites bidding wars among collectors, historians, and investors who understand the cultural and historical weight it carries. Beyond the technical errors, part of what makes the 1946 wheat penny Southwest fascinating is its place in post-war America. The nation was recovering, industry was transforming, and the mint's workforce was adapting to peacetime production after years of producing war tokens, ration coins, and emergency medals. The imperfections in these pennies reflect the human side of minting: the fatigue, the experimentation, and the trial and error that went into perfecting U.S. coinage once again. When you hold a 1946 penny, you're holding a piece of that transitional history, a moment frozen in metal when America's spirit of resilience and renewal was being forged both metaphorically and literally. Some numismatists theorize that a small batch of experimental alloy pennies was struck in 1946 as the mint tested copper-zinc ratios to restore pre-war consistency, and that a few of these test pieces may have accidentally entered circulation. If authenticated, those coins would represent experimental prototypes, worth millions due to their sheer rarity and the insight they provide into minting history. Others point to the possibility that leftover dies from 1945 were accidentally paired with 1946 planchets, resulting in slight differences in design or thickness that are undetectable except under precise analysis. The world of coin collecting thrives on such mysteries, and when you combine that intrigue with documented errors, you create the perfect storm for skyrocketing value. The $19 million valuation attributed to the rarest known 1946 penny is a reflection of this combination of history, rarity, and condition, plus the allure of discovery that drives collectors to search through pocket change, coin rolls, and old family collections hoping to stumble upon one of these elusive treasures. Even small details like a weak strike, misaligned die, or off-center strike can transform an ordinary penny into something special. A 1946 penny that is 10% or 20% off-center, showing a crescent of blank planchet along one edge, instantly becomes a unique piece that tells the story of mechanical error and timing. The more dramatic the misalignment, the more visually striking and valuable the coin becomes. Likewise, a broad strike error, where the coin expands beyond its normal rim due to improper collar engagement, can make a coin appear larger and flatter, a visually distinctive feature that collectors adore. Combine any of these with a strong double die or repunched mint mark, and you have the formula for an incredibly valuable specimen. Another fascinating possibility involves die clashes, where the obverse and reverse dies strike each other without a planchet in between, leaving ghostly impressions of one design on the opposite side of the next coin struck. A 1946 penny showing a faint outline of the wheat stalks behind Lincoln's head, for example, would be a die clash error, rare, dramatic, and historically important. These errors don't just make the coin look interesting, they provide forensic evidence of what was happening inside the mint, like fingerprints from a mechanical accident that was never supposed to occur. Sometimes, the mint even polished dies after such clashes, and a coin might show partial remnants of those marks, further enhancing its collectible intrigue. Each of these details, die polishing lines, planchet flaws, minor doubling, or ghost images, tells a story that adds to the cumulative rarity and value of a 1946 wheat penny, especially when preserved in high grade. As the decades have passed, fewer and fewer original 1946 pennies remain in pristine condition, as most were heavily circulated. Last. Today we're diving into one of the most fascinating and mind-blowing tales in American numismatic history, the story of the 1951 wheat penny, a coin that most people might overlook in their pocket change but which in rare circumstances can be worth an unbelievable $17 million because of its incredible errors, minting mistakes, and mysterious anomalies that make it one of the most desired coins among collectors around the world. Now, when we think about pennies, the 1951 wheat penny might not sound particularly special at first. It's part of the Lincoln Wheat Cent series, a design that had been around since 1909 featuring the famous portrait of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse and the two wheat stalks on the reverse, symbolizing prosperity and unity. Over a billion 1951 wheat pennies were minted between the Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco mints, which means that finding one in circulation isn't rare in itself. But what makes the 1951 penny so special, so extraordinarily valuable, are those rare mistakes and minting quirks that slipped past the eyes of quality control and turned some examples into multi-million-dollar treasures. When collectors talk about the 1951 wheat penny worth $17 million, they are referring to an extraordinary specimen that defies conventional expectations of a 1-cent coin. Let's start with one of the most discussed error possibilities, the double die obverse. This error occurs when the coin die, which stamps the design into the metal, strikes the planchet more than once but slightly off-center, resulting in a visible doubling effect on letters, numbers, or even Lincoln's face. On some 1951 wheat pennies, this doubling can be seen on the date, particularly the 1951 itself, and on the inscriptions, "In God We Trust," and "Liberty." Such doubling is not just a small visual curiosity. When strong and dramatic, it drastically increases the coin's rarity and value. Imagine holding a 1951 penny where Lincoln's image looks ghostly doubled, with distinct overlapping impressions of his features and text. The precision of these imperfections, the very thing the mint tries to avoid, is exactly what collectors crave, and this type of error, when authenticated, could push the value of a coin into the hundreds of thousands, or in the case of an exceptional, high-grade specimen with perfect doubling and pristine preservation, even into the millions. But doubling alone doesn't explain a $17 million price tag. So what else could elevate a simple wheat penny to such heights? That's where the mystery deepens, because some theories suggest that certain 1951 wheat pennies were struck on the wrong metal planchet, a phenomenon known as a wrong planchet error. During the 1950s, the U.S. Mint produced multiple coin denominations using different metals: copper for pennies, silver for dimes, nickel for 5-cent pieces, and so on. Occasionally, a blank planchet meant for one denomination accidentally found its way into the wrong press. Imagine a copper penny die striking a dime planchet, smaller, thinner, and made of a completely different alloy. The result would be a coin that looks and feels slightly different, with design elements that don't fit perfectly within the rim, making it stand out immediately to anyone sharp enough to notice. Such off-metal strikes are extremely rare, and when one dates back to an era like 1951, before strict quality checks and modern automation, it's entirely possible that one or two slip through. A 1951 wheat penny struck on a silver dime planchet would weigh less than normal, have a distinctive silver color, and produce a metallic ring rather than the dull clink of copper. If authenticated, such a piece could fetch astronomical sums at auction. There have been instances of off-metal errors from nearby years selling for millions, so it's not beyond imagination that one perfect example from 1951 could soar as high as $17 million in the private collector market. Another possibility that fascinates experts is the overmint mark error, particularly the 1951 S over D or 1951 D over S variety, where one mint mark was mistakenly punched over another. Back in the early 1950s, mint marks were hand-punched into dies, which means human error was always a risk. If a die intended for Denver was mistakenly punched with an S first, and then corrected with a D, the resulting hybrid mint mark shows traces of both letters. These overlapping marks are highly sought after because they reveal a glimpse into the manual minting process of that time, a physical record of a worker's slip of the hand over 70 years ago. Coins with such overmint marks are incredibly scarce, and when paired with high-grade preservation, they can reach jaw-dropping figures. Now imagine a 1951 D/S wheat penny with a strong double die obverse, off-metal planchet, and in near-perfect mint condition. That hypothetical combination of rare errors could explain a coin valued at an unimaginable $17 million. The condition of the coin, known as its grade, is another crucial factor in determining value. Coins are graded on a scale from 1 to 70, with 70 being a perfect specimen showing no wear under magnification. A 1951 wheat penny graded MS 70 red, meaning a fully red, uncirculated copper coin with brilliant luster, is already rare. Combine that with a dramatic mint error and you have a one-of-a-kind piece that transcends its face value entirely. In fact, some experts argue that certain coins reach record-breaking prices not just because of their rarity or condition, but because of the stories they tell and the emotional connection they create with collectors. The 1951 wheat penny might be one of those coins whose legend has grown with time, merging historical intrigue, minting mystery, and collector passion into one mythic valuation. But there's more to the 1951 penny than just its physical traits. Its historical context adds to the charm. 1951 was part of the post-war era, a time of economic recovery, technological progress, and renewed optimism in America. Lincoln's image on the penny symbolized resilience and unity, values deeply embedded in the nation's identity during that period. The wheat reverse design, soon to be replaced by the Lincoln Memorial Reverse in 1959, was nearing the end of its run, making these later wheat cents particularly nostalgic for collectors. Many enthusiasts view the 1951 issue as one of the last classic Lincoln wheat designs before the mint transitioned into a more modern aesthetic. Beyond the technical minting errors, other fascinating anomalies have been discovered among 1951 pennies. Some coins display die cracks, where the die used to strike the coin develops small fissures, leaving raised lines on the coin's surface that resemble lightning bolts or veins. Others show lamination errors, where impurities or weaknesses in the metal caused thin layers of copper to peel or bubble. Still others were misaligned during striking, causing the design to appear shifted, exposing portions of the rim or missing parts of the lettering. These minor flaws may seem small, but in the world of numismatics, they represent unique fingerprints. No two error coins are exactly alike. The more dramatic and visually distinct the error, the higher the value tends to climb. Over the decades, collectors and treasure hunters have reported finding 1951 wheat pennies with combinations of these characteristics, each one adding to the growing mythology surrounding the coin's potential multi-million-dollar worth. And when we talk about a coin fetching $17 million, we're not just talking about a price tag, we're talking about the culmination of rarity, perfection, and provenance. Provenance refers to the history of ownership, and in the numismatic world, a coin's backstory can influence its value almost as much as its physical attributes. Imagine if a 1951 wheat penny with extraordinary errors was once part of a famous collection, owned by a legendary collector, or featured in a major exhibition. That pedigree would further enhance its desirability and drive its value through the roof. Auctions have shown time and again that when two or more passionate collectors compete for a once-in-a-lifetime coin, the price can skyrocket far beyond expectations. That's likely what could have happened with the rumored $17 million sale, a perfect storm of rarity, condition, historical importance, and collector rivalry pushing the value into the stratosphere. It's also worth considering how public fascination plays a role in these valuations. Stories of everyday coins turning out to be worth millions capture the imagination, inspiring people to search their change jars, hoping to find a hidden treasure. The 1951 wheat penny's legendary $17 million figure fuels that excitement, creating a modern-day gold rush among coin enthusiasts. Whether the exact coin exists in a private collection or remains hidden in a forgotten drawer somewhere, its story serves as a reminder that numismatic miracles do happen. Every so often, an ordinary coin surfaces with an extraordinary error, rewriting the record books and changing its owner's life overnight. Let's take a closer look at how these mint errors could realistically happen. The U.S. Mint in the early 1950s was still heavily reliant on manual labor and mechanical presses that lacked today's automation and precision. Dies had to be prepared by hand, planchets were inspected manually, and striking pressures were adjusted by operators rather than computer systems. This meant that human error could occur at virtually any stage of production. If a planchet feeder jammed, coins could be struck off-center. If a die was misaligned or not properly secured, doubling or rotation could result.